As the fighting intensifies in Ukraine, New Delhi continues its efforts to evacuate its citizens from the war-torn region. The government has said that more than 20,000 Indian nationals have left Ukraine so far. Nearly 15 flights landed, and they have already landed in the country today. There were around 2,900 people on board these flights, and New Delhi says that nearly 13,300 people have returned to India so far. Now, for more on the Indian evacuations, joining us live is Manjeev Singh Puri, who is a former ambassador of India in Brussels and former ambassador and deputy permanent representative of India to the UN. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us on WION at this hour.
Thank you, Priyanka.
My first question to you, sir, as we understand, the latest reports coming in are that all Indians in Kharkiv will be evacuated within the next hours. That's what the Indian government says. Under Operation Ganga, Indian government has, of course, been speeding up the evacuations of its nationals amid the escalating conflict. What more can you tell us?
Well, it's my understanding that we have been fairly, let me say, successful in being able to pull out a very large number of our nationals in Ukraine. The number today is something slightly more than 13,000. The overall estimate of Indian nationals in Ukraine was between 18 and 20,000. So this operation, which was mounted with the government sending ministers, putting a lot of effort, sending not only the commercial jetliners but also Indian Air Force planes, has yielded results, and a large number of people have been brought out. So I think this is a good sign of what a coordinated response and a well-organized thing can be done, even in a war-torn situation. So I think this is good, and it's a matter of success for the government, but a success which sits on the back of what we have done many other places. And in fact, there are now fairly good standard operating procedures for evacuation, and we have put them to good use this time.
Absolutely. Now, Ambassador, my next question to you, there are also reports that the Indian government has advised citizens and especially students, Indian citizens and students who are currently stuck in Ukraine, to stay inside. And this, of course, comes after an SOS video from a student. Is there anything that you can tell us about that?
Look, I can't tell you anything more than the video that you've seen, because that's the only thing I've seen. But I have a very simple thing to say. They are in a war zone. They need to understand that. And, people are apprehensive. I feel for the students. I feel for them. But the situation is that calmer heads who give you advice, they would tell you, stay put where you are. If you are in a bunker, even if it is very uncomfortable, it's not particularly a friendly environment, stay there. You're likely to be safer there than to be roaming in the streets, where you can become the victim of even an accidental fire, an accidental shooting. So, and the other thing is, if you remain together and in a place like that, the chances are that an evacuation could be mounted in a more successful manner to get you out.
Right. Ambassador Puri, India so far has had a very balanced approach when it comes to dealing with this conflict. As we understand, India has very close relations with Russia when it comes to defense partnerships. The US and India are also very close allies. India is also a member of the Quad grouping, of course. How is India expected to proceed forward when it comes to foreign policy when it approaches this conflict going forward?
So, Priyanka, this is the question that everybody has been asking for the past so many days, that, why is India walking the tightrope? But the fact is that over the last several days, everybody on all channels, everyone knows that India has a very strong relationship with Russia in the defense and in the nuclear fields. There are also lots of instances in the past where the Russians have been particularly friendly towards India and our requirements in terms of international governance at the UN, etc. But the fact also remains that over the last decade or so, our relations with the United States have improved tremendously, and indeed with the entire set of Western countries. This has included, in a sense, the entire focus on the Indo-Pacific, our being a member of the Quad, and several other factors related to the situation between India and China, and generally our desire to grow our economy to $5 trillion. Now, this is a tough call, and these are calls that governments take. They seem to have weighed all the various options, taking the call. But if I can just say something to you in a manner which might just expressively put it across.
Right.
As long as non-alignment was the ruling mantra in India, actually no one would have asked us for taking a middle-of-the-road position. But we have leaned, and we have leaned for good reasons. And so, therefore, the question, of course, begets answering. But, the ideas of multi-alignment, the ideas of non-alignment are of a certain significance for a country like India, given our size of our population, our economy, where we are placed, and the need for us to have good relations across the board with everyone.
Absolutely, Ambassador Puri. Thank you for those insights. Just wrapping up our discussion here, given your expertise, how do you see this conflict unfolding in the days coming forward? As we understand, Putin is unfazed by all the global sanctions, the Western sanctions in particular. India is practicing a balanced approach, as you have pointed out. There is a humanitarian crisis that is unfolding as we speak. What can you say will happen going forward?
Priyanka, I don't know what will go, but I am very worried about one thing. I am very, when you see and hear President Zelensky, the Ukrainians shoring up nationalism, talking in terms of their courage, their desire to defend, their willingness to take on things and ideas of supplies of arms, etc., etc. It feels very good for all of us sitting outside. I'm sure there's a great deal of internal feeling among the Ukrainians, but I fear for all. Because, courage, and frankly, in my dictionary, the discretion is the better part of valor. This kind of courage could result in what the Russians have not done till now. If you notice, what the Russians have done is they've moved deliberately, they've moved slowly. Many people are saying, why is it taking so much time? But please note that the casualties among civilians, the casualties even among Ukrainians is not been very, very high. There have been damages to airfields, nuclear power plants have been taken over, etc. But the casualties of civilians have been limited for a good set of reasons that the Russians have taken this view. But if you keep on challenging them, then, we don't know what can happen. And I sincerely fear that this kind of, let me say, a great deal of courage being shown, which is a good thing. Of course, you must have courage. Absolutely. But on the other hand, it has the potential of flaring up the situation, resulting in a great deal of civilian casualties. And I would be particularly loath on that. Remember, the Ukrainians are left to fight for themselves. Others are giving moral support, financial support, military hardware. But really, it's the Ukrainians for themselves against the Russian might. And we can keep saying the Russian military is not performing, is not doing this. But the fact is that it's a huge, big machine. It may have been lumbering, but perhaps decidedly and determinedly in a lumbering manner. But please, let's not test it beyond what is, let me say, what you just have to do.
Right. Ambassador Puri, thank you so much for all those insights and perspectives. And thanks for joining us on WION World is One.
Thank you.